And we're live, brother. How you doing, man?
Hey, hey, I feel pretty good. I feel like somebody had tossed some damn flour in my mouth. I can't talk. Got nervous and damn, I can't talk. It's been a long time since we've been on here. I got water. I got coffee. I was kind of thinking tonight, is this when we start putting the burnt orange glasses on, moving into to winter conditioning, into spring, into summer, into making predictions for next year's football team. And I promised myself I was going to try to watch the burnt orange glasses, but I don't think it's possible, man, as a Texas Longhorn fan, to not be excited about your football team each and every year, regardless of how it plays out.
Yeah, that's generally what we do. If you've been in any of these Twitter spaces, just trying to figure out, but that's always what we're going to do, is we're going to try to find the best case scenario going into winter conditioning. We're going to look at the spring game, and again, we're going to analyze it. We're going one side of the ball does well, then the other side of the ball looks not so good, and then go back and forth into summer. Then you start looking at depth charts and who's replacing who. And I think this year, among as many as I can remember, is wide open competition, and we're going to kind of go through the scholarship distribution, who's currently on campus. We'll go through the recruiting class, and we'll talk about, who are those guys that contributed in this program over the last several years that have earned the starting spot, or we feel have earned a starting spot for 2022. And you're going to find out it's not that many. But like Steve Sarkisian said, the overhaul has begun. I think he said after season they were looking to replace 33. They were going to have 33 new faces on campus. At this point, if you count the transfer portal and the recruiting class, there's 32. That's the title. 32 new names, and they're gonna come in and compete, just like you said yesterday. Regardless if you're a 6-year senior or a true freshman, if you earn the right to play, if you play well, then you're gonna get that playing time.
Yeah, to me, you signed a hell of a class, man, for a team that went 5-7, under 500 to come out here. People were worried, just like we were, when the dominoes aren't falling fast enough on the recruiting trail, right? And you wind up with the number 5 class, and if you plus the additional transfer guys, obviously, I think Steve Sarkisian said it best. I think Quinn Ewers wanted to be at the University of Texas. Bottom line, for him to go to Ohio State, when he got there, he realized that this is probably not the best thing for him. And I think getting him back to where he wanted to be at originally is hands down, obviously, the biggest transfer that we got. The one, obviously, impact, depending on how that quarterback room plays out. We'll talk a little bit about that. From a day one starter, you got a guy in Jaleel Billingsley from Alabama that both Banks, Sarkisian, Flood know exactly what they're getting in that tight end. And that's someone that can block, one. And then two is a pass catching tight end, something we haven't consistently had. I'm gonna say a pass catching tight end that can make big plays down the field. We haven't had that. And then obviously getting Ryan Watts from Ohio State, in the secondaries is definitely big pickups on top of this, this class that we just signed. What was it? And then obviously Isaiah Nair coming out of University of Wyoming. They said, I read something on Twitter earlier. There was 13 players that had 12 touchdowns coming back, wide receivers that had 12 touchdowns or more, and we got 2 of them. Definitely a need to fill was that wide receiver position. You would have helped that you would have seen, Troy Amiri, Marcus Washington had stepped up last year, got some transfers to the left now at TCU. So to me, the people they've got in the transfer portal so far, I don't think they haven't had to reach too far. That makes sense. I think last year, when you look at who they grabbed, I think they were reaching, and I think they were reaching to fill depth versus having a person come in and be able to start day one on this football team.
Yeah, contributors, right? So you hit the nail on the head. And thank you, Sean Thomas Tucker. Missed you guys as well. Glad we're back as well. Had some personal stuff we had to deal with, Army stuff we had to deal with. But glad we're back and really fired up about this recruiting class of 22. But you talk about, guys that can start coming in. Isaiah Nair is definitely one of them. And Steve Sarkisian kind of talked about it yesterday in his press conference. how this evened out, right? So you had Bijan, Keelan, and Roshan who were producing, but I talked about this in spaces as well, but you only had one true receiver, and it was easy to roll coverage, especially after Whittington got hurt after the Oklahoma game. It was easy to roll coverage to Xavier Worthy's side, and you really didn't, like you said, didn't have that, catching tight, that guy that off the line tied in, because in 22 personnel, I see Jatavian Sanders being that inline guy, seeing Jaleel Billingsley being that guy that's flexed. And then you talk about the running back position, Keelan Robinson, Roshan Johnson, Jaden Blue, Jonathan Brooks, whoever. But it's important to have those two outside receivers that you could take, that you can't lock one man up with coverage over the top. Way too many super chats for a show for a YouTube channel who hasn't done anything in 3 months. So really, really appreciate that, Scott Sheridan, that $20 super chat. Don't know if we deserve it, but really, really appreciative of it. Then we had one more. Gregory I popped in here with a $2 super chat. Really, really appreciate that as well. Again, he says, haven't seen you guys in forever. Oh, we know. It
was funny because I wanted to bring somebody put in our DMs that we pulled a Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? Hey, did y'all pull a Tom Brady and kind of retire? No, like Jeremy said, once you start getting into really the off season, one you have a disaster of a season. That's rough. And one, number two, you start getting into the off season. And at some particular point, you got to take a break. I can tell you that dealing with personal things. Jeremy is, with the Army, he's obviously in and out of the field quite a bit. And then Clint's decided he's going to go back to school, to change his career path. So there's a whole bunch of things going on outside of just doing YouTube. But it's definitely one of these things we love to do. We're passionate about. Obviously, we're passionate about talking Texas Longhorn football. It's just making the time available to do that. You know what I'm saying? With busy schedules.
And we talked about this before. You never want to hop on here, one, without topics and just ramble on. Number one, because that doesn't produce a good show. Folks that are here first time. Of course, we got our guys who've been with us from the beginning that will probably tune in to hear us babble. But you never want to put on a bad product for those longtime viewers and those guys that are coming in. So you want to make sure you have your ducks in a row and that you can produce a good show because you guys deserve it. You're spending money in here, for goodness sakes. Appreciate you, Devontae Hamilton, for that $4.99 super chat. Again, you guys are throwing a lot of money at two guys who haven't done a whole lot in the last 3 months. So we really do appreciate it. We're going to be all over the place tonight. We got a lot of stuff to catch up with. You guys know this. So we'll get back to talking Texas football. Really appreciate that.
We'll start off with the quarterbacks. You want to start off with the quarterbacks? You want to start off with the new coaches?
Let's go quarterbacks first.
Let's quarterbacks first. All right. Talked a little bit about Quinn Ewers. Obviously, his dream school was Texas. Decided he wanted to decommit from Texas. Hell, we had a beautiful commitment video on there. Then we had some other videos of talking about Quinn Ewers on our channels. I think they may or may not still be there. I don't know. At some point we kind of decided we were going to kind of get some of those videos so we didn't have like 150 videos up there for people to scroll through.
Right.
What you see right now is, to me, is just lack of experience. Even with Hudson Card playing in this system and being at the University of Texas for 3 years, what you've seen from him last year, you could have said, oh, he and again, it's his first time playing last year, so the experience wasn't there. So he's playing really as a redshirt freshman. So to me, when we're looking at these quarterbacks, experience, do I think the arm talent there? Do I think we have 3 Elite 11 quarterbacks sitting in that room right now in Quinn Ewers, Hudson Card, and Malik Murphy. 3 Elite 11 quarterbacks. And then obviously you got Charles Wright from right down the street, or right across the street there in Austin, who was the Iowa State commit at one particular point. So how does this work itself out, Jeremy?
Like you said, we're going to kind of go through and talk about the quarterbacks. We're going to talk about the offensive line. When we go a little bit further in the show, yesterday we got Devon Campbell and of course, Kevin Banks is another 5-star offensive lineman. We're going to go through the depth chart and kind of talk about who's earned the right to start on the 2022 Texas Longhorn football team. And like you said, you got Quinn Ewers, who essentially this is his class, right? I count him and Jordan Thomas as part of the 2022 class because, again, Quinn went to Ohio State. as a senior in high school. So again, if he would have been along with this same class, he would have been with the Jaden Blues. He would have been with this current class that we're talking about, with Devon Campbell's, Kelvin Banks. So in my mind, Quinn Ewers and Jordan Thomas, the 21 signee that stepped away from football, who now has come back to the football program, both I look at those guys as 2022 guys. You hit the nail right on the head. It's a lack of experience, right? So nobody's earned the right to be QB1 yet. Like, who's going to take the job in the spring? Again, it's going to be an open competition. I think the guys that are going to be competing for that job currently are Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card. Who do I think is going to win that competition? I definitely think it's going to be Quinn Ewers. Again, because we saw Hudson Card last year play football, and he didn't really earn the right to be labeled as the starter going into spring ball. And if you want to talk about pure arm talent, Quinn Ewers is the best arm talent. I kept thinking back yesterday. I'm like, Sam Ehlinger, no. Case McCoy, no. David Ash, no. Colt McCoy, no. Vince Young, no. Major Applewhite, no. This is the best arm the 40 Acres has seen since I've been watching Texas football. Hands down. I mean, he's got enough wheels to get out of trouble. He will, again, he's a freshman, right? So if he starts, he's going to put balls in areas where nobody on this roster can put balls in tight windows, but he's a freshman. So he's also he knows he's got a cannon for an arm, so he's going to challenge that arm. So you're probably going to have some INTs that are throws that he thinks his arm can make in the tight spots, and they get picked off or batted down. But he gives you the best chance to win, in my mind, especially when you're talking about outside receivers like Isaiah Nair, Xavier Worthy, Billingsley, Jatavian Sanders, Keelan Robinson, Bijan Robinson. Like Steve Sarkisian talked about it yesterday, a balanced offense of weapons, right? So they can't stack the box anymore because you got Nair and Worthy outside. You can't roll coverage anymore because, like you said, you got two. I was looking at, we thought Xavier Worthy had a great season. We got a subscription to PFF, and I wanted to see how good Isaiah Nair was. He's a 93 grade. Xavier Worthy was an 82 grade. Now, take what you want from PFF, but if you thought Xavier Worthy had a great season, PFF ranked Isaiah Nair 11 points higher than Xavier Worthy. So, again, it was against competition that's not as good as the Big 12. But, again, he's a talent that slipped away. He's originally from Arlington, Texas, found his way back to Texas, and happy to have him.
Yeah. So really getting back to this Quinn, obviously Quinn Ewers, and I don't, you covered a lot of it there. And you really can't go back to really South Lake Carroll. That feels like it was like 2 years ago. But you got to think about this guy, man. He was number one guy in the 2021 class when he reclassified, right? One. And two, he would have been the number one guy in this 2022 class if he would have stayed there. So you really, if you think about it, you got the number one guy in two classes from a recruiting standpoint. So you can add those for the guys that love to do the 247 calculator there. See if you can figure out the math there and see where Quinn Ewers would put you if he would stay at that number one position in this class. And that's really what you got. And then Jeremy obviously talked about Jordan Thomas, who took a year off that didn't play this year. He decided to, obviously go to the coaching staff, said he needed a year off, decided to come back. And now he's back in that 22 class as well. But it's not like Quinn Ewers didn't do anything for the last year either. He went to Ohio State, had some time with Ryan Day there at Ohio State, another quarterback guy. So it's not like he took time off. He obviously was in a college strength and conditioning program at Ohio State. But I think the biggest thing is sitting there in a college quarterback room for the time that he was there. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he just, hey, I know I'm going to transfer. I'm not going to pay attention to any of this stuff. It's reps that he got over the last year as a college quarterback that gives him a little bit more experience than someone just coming straight out of high school.
If you're on the scout team giving looks to the defense at Ohio State, that's growth. Like you said, if you were in a film room with a collegiate quarterback coach and a head coach like Ryan Day, then that's growth. It was 4 months later, right? Steve Sarkisian said it. He spent 4 months on another college campus and made his way back to Texas. And if you read Mike Roach's story, he got a couple of stories on there for folks that pay for subscriptions. Part 1 and part 2, and he talks about just about every kid in this 2022 class and talks about the background of exactly how they made it to the 40 acres. And you should really, if you get a chance, check out the story of Quinn Ewers. When he originally committed to Texas, decommitted from Texas, went to Ohio State a year early, it would have been his senior year at South Lake. Once he got there, he was already talking about coming home and how that kind of played out towards the end. It's really good that Mike kind of let us inside the closed door scenes of what he was hearing, because Mike not going to put his reputation on the line with kids and coaches, so he's never going to let the cat out of the bag too early. But yeah, really good story by Mike Roach talking about Hudson Card's re-recruitment.
You mind if I answer this real quick? Gregory,
yeah,
here with a $5 super chat. Again, appreciate Gregory for that super chat. Hudson Card was number 2 dual threat coming out of high school. Yep, in that 2019 class, I want to believe, 19 or 20 class, I believe. Sadly, he had to run for his life and wasn't prepared for that. If he had been at OU, he would have put up numbers. 2 things here. Again, you got 3 Elite 11 quarterbacks. He doesn't have the arm talent of Quinn Ewers, bottom line. And I'm going to tell you, any quarterback coach, anybody that watches any type of football, if you put Hudson Card and you put Quinn Ewers on the same field and you ask them to make the same throws, the spin on the ball is totally different. That's number 1, right? He can't make the same throws as Quinn Ewers. That's bottom line. And then number 3, Steve Sarkisian's not looking for a dual threat quarterback in his offense. He's not. He's looking for someone that can sit back there, hand the ball off to the running back, and then take deep shots downfield, right? And be able to hit those deep shots. But he's also wants someone that can read coverage and make the throws that he needs to make the throws. Running the ball from a quarterback position under Steve Sarkisian only happens when you have an offensive line like we had last year that can't hold up in pass protection, and now you're running for your life. And it's just not – do I think Hudson Card could be successful? Absolutely, 100%. Does it bring good competition? He's in year 3. You got a redshirt freshman that's coming in Quinn Ewers. Does it bring good competition? Absolutely. But you got to listen to what Steve Sarkisian said. Don't look at the guy to your left or don't look at the guy to your right. Don't worry about what they're doing. We've told them they need to specifically worry about what they need to worry about. You worry about what you need to worry about. And at the end of the day, come September, if you did what we told you as a quarterback and you fix those issues that you needed to fix, and you learn the offense and you can run our offense, we're going to put you on the field. Bottom line, I'm not saying Quinn Ewers is going to take the starting position today. What I'm saying is Quinn Ewers has arm talent. Has arm talent of a high school at a high school level, and he's making throws, NFL throws, as a junior in high school. There's a reason he's 1.00000, and he was the number 1 recruit in both classes in the 21-22 class.
It's not hype to say he has the best arm that Texas has ever had since I've been watching. That's not hype. That's definitive, and it looked like that in his sophomore tape. When we did his commitment corner during his junior year, we talked about it then. Let me take an opportunity. And like you said, I don't know if he's going to win the starting job, but what I'm saying is nobody on this current roster has earned the right to start ahead of him. And if it's about throwing ability and throwing guys open and making plays, it's going to be Quinn Ewers in my mind. I want to thank several guys in here, and then I'll talk about FP's comment here. Sam's in here with me. I might have to let him out, but I have seen in this chat box Texas Homer. I have seen in this chat box Lando Show. I have seen in this chat box Fanatic Perspective. Content creation is fun. We haven't done it in 3 months. These have been the guys that have been holding it down for us for the last 3 months, and we really, really appreciate them taking their time to come in and hang out with us as we come back to content creation. Let me let Sam out of here, and then you talk about Fanatics Perspective comment, and I want to add something to it as well.
Yeah. So Fanatics Perspective, he was on a team at Ohio State that was crazy elite offensively too. If his eyes weren't open considering Stroud's development in the season with those receivers, I'm sure there's positive takeaways. Absolutely, man. It's one reason why you got to transfer, because you got someone like Stroud that's sitting there that is in the top 10 of Heisman. I think with Heisman votes, and again, that's a place Jeremy was just talking about. That's a place where that individual, unless something falls apart and goes really awry, that he was going to start at Ohio State this year. Talking about Stroud. So did Quinn Ewers have to make a decision and say, okay, is it Ohio State, or do I transfer out and try to go somewhere where there may not be as much competition. One, he probably looked at that room and said, there's probably not that much competition there. I think I have an opportunity to go in and at least give myself an opportunity to start at the University of Texas. Did we know what was going to happen with Casey Thompson or Hudson Card when he decided to do that? Absolutely not. We figured one of them would transfer out. To me, Casey Thompson probably would have transferred out. He's the older guy. He found his place in Nebraska. If you would have asked me, I thought at the end of the year, I thought at the beginning of the year, it wouldn't surprise me if Hudson Card didn't transfer out. But we know it's not going to happen before the spring, one, because Steve Sarkisian's going to wait probably until the fall to make the decision like he did last year at the quarterback position. So those guys are going to run through the spring into the fall, and then he'll make his decision, and we'll kind of see what goes on from there.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to drag it out to the first game, kind of like last year. I think we're going to know hopefully earlier in fall, who's got the job. And I did want to go back. I wanted to pop this up real quick. $1.5 million a year since Quinn will start, even if he's even close in the quarterback competition. We understand what he's talking about, that NIL money.
My question though, real quick, is what will $1.5 million get you? Will it get you into one of those high-rise buildings right there next to the university? $1.5 million. Will that get you? Is he staying in one of those beautiful high-rises next to the stadium so he can walk back?
I don't know. I'd have to ask these guys that are closer to the Austin housing market. But I'm up here in Coppers Cove. You're down there in Shirts, and I feel like we're doing well every single day with the housing. You know, we both bought our homes about the same time, and I feel like every day we check what it's worth. It's definitely climbing. So I don't know, man. And I told my wife, if it reached a certain number, we're going to sell and move down the street. She said, absolutely not, because the price of that house keeps moving up. And I said, yeah, I was just messing with you, because this is our forever home. We want it to be our forever home. But I want to go back and talk about Olave. I want to go back and talk about Garrett Wilson. I want to go back and talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba. You're absolutely right, Stephen, when you're talking about that elite offense and getting to throw to those elite receivers, there's definitely some growth there. And again, you got the makings of that start of a receiving core here at the University of Texas with Xavier Worthy and Nair. If you could just get Troy O'Meara healthy. I wanted to go back and look and see how many snaps he's taken at the University of Texas. I want to say it's 0. I want to say he's gotten hurt every preseason and never taken a true snap at the University of Texas. Somebody had to hop in here and help me. Tell me or help me. Kind of combine 2 words there. Drinking a lot of coffee. Sitting in the house all day, not going to work. But then Jordan Whittington, like I said, was a very good receiver up until the time that he got hurt against OU. But that's been his history. So you got 2 guys who I think are very, very talented that have had once had limited snaps and the others had 0 snaps. And then you're bringing in, like you said, 2 of the highest performing receivers from last year. If you could just get some help from one of those guys, and again, Billy Zoo will be your flex tight end. Whoever wins that job, Jatavian, Gunner, or Juan Davis will be, in my mind, your inline tight end. And then you got what Steve Sarkisian called, a pretty defined offense with both running and passing. But it all comes down to, we know, the offensive line.
Yeah. Me and Jeremy were actually going through, we were talking about 22 personnel. We were actually trying to figure out who that 22 personnel was going to be last night. And we'll get to that, as we move along into the offseason, get into spring and start looking at, obviously personnel packages 11, 12, 21, 22, and so on and so forth. I'm going to put this up here, Cody Phillips, because I don't want to forget about it. We're probably going to answer this when we get a little bit further into the show. Over under 4 freshmen starting next year and who they may be. We'll actually probably get into it. I want to say offense. When we start going through the list of naming starters who could possibly start this year, or who's earned a starting spot, you're probably going to see some of these true freshmen, or these true freshmen's names start coming up for an opportunity to start all across the field. So I just didn't want to forget about that one, Cody. We'll definitely go ahead, Jeremy.
I want Cody to be more specific, because if you're asking game 1, I may have to go under. If you're asking get starts throughout the season, I'll definitely go over, because I think Quinn and Devon Campbell, if you're counting Quinn as a freshman, I think Quinn and Devon Campbell, I think they're day 1 starters. If you're asking me, Kelvin Banks, I believe, will start games. He may be a day 1 starter. He may start against Alabama. I don't know. But I think those are three right off the hand that I think will earn starting positions this year. And then as we go through, I may add one or two as we go through the depth chart and the guys that are coming in.
He said nope, anytime this season. So during the season, which I think it's easier to give the ones that may start at the beginning of the season after fall camp versus the ones that are, during the season who could work themselves into a starting position. Because that's always possible. Let's talk about coaches, man. And I'm gonna start with the big one, the awkward one. Gary Patterson sitting there at the Texas Longhorn basketball game with I don't know if it's a polo or not, with that Texas Longhorn logo on there, sitting there with Chris Del Conte watching that basketball game. That was a weird sight, man. It's a weird sight, but I truly believe it is a blessing in disguise getting Gary Patterson to be on your staff as the, assistant to the coach or whatever you want, a special assistant to the coach or whatever you want to call him. And we can kind of get into that a little bit, man. Your thoughts on Gary Patterson? Fired
up, dude. Like to see him and PK are kind of the same guy. What PK did with Washington, taking, 2 and 3 star recruits and getting the most out of them, getting drafted. Some of their guys getting drafted that weren't highly recruited. Gary Patterson does the same thing at TCU. These guys are schemers. They're developers. I just think this is their first class again. They were working off, Tom Herman stuff last year. I think there was a concerted effort to go to the defensive line and the offensive line route. And like I said, you could have no better guy in my mind self-scouting your team than Gary Patterson. That says, hey, I think this guy would be a better contributor if we moved him here. I think a guy would be a better contributor if we put him in this kind of personnel package, in this kind of scheme fit. Because again, 4 and 5 stars at this point, to me, we've shown it doesn't really matter if we have a top 5 class. We get top 5 classes year in, year out, year in, year out. And it hasn't, personified in 10, 11 wins like it used to. What we need to do is find the guys that fit the scheme and put them in the best chance to make plays. And I think Gary Patterson will help PK do that on the defensive side.
I think, like you said, it comes down to him being able to evaluate talent. Because obviously he's not going to be on the field to be able to develop those guys, But when you're talking about evaluating guy, he takes a quarterback and puts him at linebacker who turns around and gets drafted in the NFL. He just has a tendency to be able to see guys' growth before it happens. And I think when you're looking at the secondary, and I was talking to Jeremy about before the show started, I was talking to Jeremy specifically about the secondary, right? And when you're looking at, GP's secondaries at TCU, over the last 21 years, it's just handpicking guys that weren't 4 or 5 stars and putting them in positions so that they thrive and develop to the level in which they're playing at the NFL. And I think when you have a defensive secondary like we currently have right now, let's just take an Anthony Cook, right, that played the star nickel position. To me, Gary Patterson's, I'd love to hear what Gary Patterson's thoughts are on, does Anthony Cook, is he a true nickel, true star, or is he a cornerback, or is he a safety? And I think that's what he brings to really, when he's analyzing the defense and he's self-scouting, or if he's looking at, where these guys should line up each every play. To me, that's what he brings to the field. You could tell in Steve Sarkisian's press conference yesterday that he was excited to have him there. He said, when I was at Alabama, we had 6 head coaches, 4 analysts, and 2 guys, which were Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood on the team at one given time, right? 4 head coach analysts. And they are able to look through the prism of being a head coach, right? So they're looking at the staff. They're looking at development. To me, he should be the guy when you get these recruiting analysts that are looking at film. The first guy you probably should run them through is Gary Patterson. Once they pass Gary Patterson's eye test, right? Which I think that 2024 kid that they just offer, that sounds like he may be committing out of East Texas there. It just came up on 247 before we came up on here. He was already offered by TCU. So it's one of those things that, hey, look at the film. Is this a guy that looks like he could develop, continue to develop through his college career, and then pass it on to the coaches there, the position coaches to start having conversations with these players, man.
You popped this one up. Did you want to talk about it? Or do you want me?
Yeah,
to talk about
I was just. Can you guys talk about what it's like to change careers in your work late in your working careers? Is it a fire or a motivator? Just wondering what GP must be feeling. You want to answer this?
I told you. Yeah, I told you this last night. Like, why would Pete Witkowski move from the West Coast after coaching there for 25 years? That was the scenario you brought up. And then I talked about these guys want to win, man. Gary Patterson wants to win on a big level. And I don't think he thought he could get that done at TCU. Again, he lost his job at TCU, but what better staff, like you said, a guy like Steve Sarkisian, who's been in that Saban tree, who's had 4 head coaches on his staff. And if Gary Patterson's looking to stay in coaching, what better place to do it at the University of Texas, who's trying to grow and get better? He knows the state. He can recruit the state. And again, somebody popped up real quick before you talk about it, about scheme. Again, I don't care what kind of scheme Gary Patterson and PK run. They are different, right? They were different. But what I care about is, again, what I just said, and that's putting these guys in their proper positions on the football field, like you talked about earlier. If they're not contributing at safety, can we drop them down to star? If they're not contributing at inside, can we make them an edge? Finding the best 11 guys on that side of the football field and scheming, putting their heads together to scheme with these guys' talents. That's the worst thing in football is if you and I think they get it. Like, they talked about it, like 4 and 5 star. I don't care. I want the guys who fit our system. And that's what they're going to do, is build a system around these athletes. Yeah. And because both of them are fantastic defensive coordinators. They know how to get the job done. I'm rambling, but yeah, if you want to take it as well.
No, but the biggest thing is, and you could put his comment back up, because I can't remember what the question was there from Cody, but talking about schemes, right? You can have all the schemes in the world, right? But it comes down to having players fit in that scheme to be able to do the job, right? Hell, you can run a 4-2-5, you can run a 3-man front. Hell, you can run, nickel the entire game. Hell, you can put 6'6" defensive backs out there, like I think freaking Oklahoma State does, right? They don't go out there and say, okay, this guy's a safety and this guy's a cornerback when they recruit these guys. Are you a defensive back? And we're going to put all these defensive backs on the field. Hell, you can run the same defensive Iowa State runs, but if you don't have the players to fit that scheme, then the scheme doesn't work regardless. And I think it's identifying these players to the scheme, to PK's scheme, because they're not going to change the scheme. PK is going to run his stuff. But to me, Gary Patterson's thoughts on who should play each position is enough for me, and then developing that talent and understanding what you're trying to recruit to, he'll be able to identify regardless of what scheme they're running. Can you guys talk about what it's like to change careers late in your working careers? Is it a new fire or a motivator? Just wondering what GP must be feeling. Okay, so I'm going to take it from a personal level, right? So retired from the military, close to 22 years from the Army. And since then, I've taken on 3 jobs, right? 3 jobs. They see usually if you retire from the military, usually takes you that 3rd job until you find exactly what you want to do. So I can tell you, and this is, I'm not going to shock my boss or anything today because, I've already let my people know about it. Clint's passion has always been to be an educator, right? To educate. I loved working with the 18 to 22-year-old soldiers. I love that mentorship. I love that guidance. I love that motivation that you're able to present to them. I've always wanted to be an educator. So Clint's going back to school. I'm currently, and we'll be working on a history degree. And I am going to go be an educator, take a teacher certification course, and hopefully become a teacher 9 through 12, and may have an opportunity to volunteer coach somewhere, which obviously we love football. To me, that's a passion-driven change. That makes sense because I've always been passionate about it. For him, I don't think that GP necessarily needed to go back and be a head coach. I don't think he wanted to be a head coach, but I think he wanted to be somewhere around those 18 to 22-year-old kids, right? I think he loves being a coach, but I just don't necessarily think he wanted to be a head coach anymore. I don't think he wanted to be responsible. I don't think he was ever going to take a on the field position unless he was, offered maybe a defensive coordinator position. I don't even know if he'd take it. After you've been a head coach for 21 years, to step down and go back to being, a coordinator, probably not something he's going to do. So I think he found that niche. And I think he found it with Chris Del Conte, where he had an opportunity to be almost a second head coach in the eyes and the ears of Steve Sarkisian when Steve Sarkisian's not there, and still be able to do the passionate thing he loves, and that's being around college kids and developing guys to go to the NFL.
Yeah, I just think he's value add, regardless of why he's here and why he joined the University of Texas staff. I still think he's value add. Like, you have that much experience on the defensive side of the ball, and like you said a little bit earlier, as a head coach, like Steve Sarkisian said that he's going to help him with practice planning. He's going to help him with week preparations. He's going to help him in a lot of areas. So Steve Sarkisian could focus on the big, the macro stuff, and have Gary kind of, like you said, coaching the coaches, working on the practice schedule, like the micro stuff that Gary knows how to do, that allows Steve to kind of, free himself up to do other things. So I think it's definitely a value add to this staff, regardless of why he's there.
It's an A++ hire to me. Bottom line, we could add up all of our issues with Gary Patterson over the last umpteen years, but to me, it's an A++ hire. Successful people surround themselves with successful people. Bottom line.
Absolutely.
And that's the only way you get better. It's funny because me and Jeremy were talking about how do you think the emotions are going to work with this. And to me, PK would be crazy if he didn't listen to, if PK and Steve Sarkisian would be crazy if they didn't listen to or take the advice of, Gary Patterson. Are they going to do it all the time? Steve Sarkisian said, we'll listen to what he has to say. We'll decide how we want to do it, what we want to do with that information. So A++ hire there.
Yeah, we'll leave this one up, but this is going to be a 3-hour show if we don't move to the next topic.
Yeah, I know.
Brendan Marion and Tashard Choice.
And the wife said I got 1 hour. So
there you go.
Bottom line. So all right. So Mary, let's talk about Tashard Choice. Obviously, a Dallas Cowboy. If you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, you love some Tashard Choice. Getting that guy out of Georgia Tech, fiery, young, energetic. I think both him and Brendan Marion, where they're at currently, projections are really high with these guys. And to bring them in currently where they're at, because they're still hungry to move to the next level. And I think that's, if you're going to bring coaches in now, you want those guys that haven't been stagnant for a long time at their position as a position coach. Andre Coleman, been a position coach for a long time, wide receiver coach. I think these guys are projected at one point, hell, who knows how long Brendan Marion will be around, with his go-go offense, with his mind, offensive mind. The next job he's probably going to take is going to be an offensive coordinator. It would not surprise me at a Power 5 school. So that projection is still there. They're still hungry. They still want to continue to have that growth, and they're young enough to be able to reach out to these young recruits and almost be, to be on the same level playing field. If you watch Brendan Marion, if you watch their I think is it Tashard Choice and Brendan Marion. If you watch their Twitter accounts, they're totally different than what you're going to get from Pete Witkowski, Choate, and the rest of that coaching staff, which I think is a wonderful place to be.
I think, like you said, they're technicians on the football field. Again, Brendan Marion just had the Blitnikoff Award winner, right? Was hoping he would come with them, to be honest with you. And Jordan Addison. But I think the technical part of their positions, they do very well. Steve Sarkisian said that yesterday. But where you get the plus is that recruiting. Is like you said, these guys one was an NFL player, one is very young, and like I said, he's a technical coach, but he's young and he can relate to these young kids. They seem to love him. Both of them seem to love him, or all these kids seem to love him. And we lost Brian Carrington and we lost Rashad Samples. And we said, there goes our recruiting. There goes our relatability to these kids. Well, I think you've got Rashad Samples and Brian Carrington, but now you got but they're more technical on the football field. And great position coaches that go along with that ability to recruit and relate to young men to get them onto campus and ultimately allow the University of Texas to sell itself.
Yeah. Again, A hires to me. You know what I'm saying? Just who they are, the energy they bring, the technical. Sarkisian talks about the technical piece of it. With the running back rooms and the quarterback rooms, and that's what we need right now. On because he said, what is it? You got to be a coach, you got to be a recruiter, you got to be a staff guy. You're wearing 3 hats at all times, and he said these guys fit that bill.
Yeah, Texas Homer staff needed that young energy the kids can relate to. Both these new hires can speak with actual authority because both played football. And recently, right? You can go back and look at game film of Tashard Choice of the Cowboys, and it doesn't look like 70s or 80s film or 90s film. You go back and watch Brendan Marion at Tulsa. It's, relatable film. They were running spread offenses. It's similar, film that these kids can relate to and understand and tap into real quick if they want to.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to offensive line, man. The meat and potatoes of this 22 recruiting class was obviously the two 5-stars. I think it's the first time ever that Texas signed 2 5-star offensive linemen in one class in the current era, I guess they would call it. DJ Campbell out of Arlington Bowie there, and then Kelvin Banks, man. You got a tackle and you got a guard that are going to be on the 40 acres for a minimum of 3 years, man. I don't know what else to say, man. It's we're speechless. You see this?
Somebody asked earlier or made the comment earlier, and I heard Steve Sarkisian say it yesterday about Devon Campbell. And it was that he plays tackle but can play guard.
Yep.
That's where I see him taking reps early in his career as guard. And I think Kelvin Banks will take snaps early in his career at tackle. But I think that's what allows Devon Campbell to get on the football field before Kelvin Banks is I think they look at Kelvin Banks as a tackle, right? He's that's where he's going to play. Whereas Devon has that amazing ability as a guard to trap block, to pull on a counter trade and get downfield and make corners and safeties pray for their lives. You see it on his film. And Kelvin Banks has that same tenacity as a tackle. But I think his athleticism, Devon Campbell's athleticism, is a plus at guard. Again, I think Kelvin Banks is a tackle prospect. I think Cole Hudson is a guard prospect. I think Andre Carrick, we've seen him play well in the past. I think he's a tackle. Talking about Cameron Williams. Cameron Williams played tackle at Duncanville. I think he's an interior player. I think he's Deontay Brown from Alabama. I think he cuts 25 pounds. He gets 340, and he's a monster at guard. We talked about, our buddy Connor Robertson's probably going to slide from tackle to center. You're talking about Neto. Neto's a versatile player that plays tackle but can move inside the guard. This group is phenomenal. And then Malik Ogbo. Malik Ogbo is just as athletic. You go back, turn on his film, he can play both. He plays tackle right now. But this group it has unlimited potential. I'm going to say one starts game 1 in the fall. I'm going to say 2 or 3 of these guys can get on the field as starters by season's end. Again, when I start talking about names like Christian Jones, Hayden Connor, Jalen Garth, Andre Carrick, Max Merrill, Tyler Johnson, Junior Angelau, Isaiah Hookfin, who of these 8 or 9 guys that are currently on this roster as it sits have earned the right to be no doubt starters in the 2022 season? Somebody might say Christian Jones, but in my mind, go back and look at his PFF grades. Christian Jones didn't play well last year, and I thought he was my guy. He was definitely Kyle Flood's guy, because we watched that video from front to back, and before the season, he absolutely loved Christian Jones' ability to move and how he could get to the second level. We didn't see that pan out. And again, that may have been a unit thing. That may have been those 5 guys couldn't work together. But there were definitely some weak links. We all saw it last year. So in my mind, out of the names I just listed, who has earned the right to start in 2022? In my mind, it's no one. So every job is up for grabs in the spring. And I could see two or three of these guys, again, 1 or 2 maybe starting game 1. And we'll see what happens there.
So when you're looking at, across the line there, I don't think there's any starters that these guys got to come in and compete. It's like Junior Angelau taking snaps at center last year with Jake Majors. Usually your centers aren't 6'6", 316 pounds. You know what I'm saying? They're usually shorter, squattery guys. But Kyle Flood was willing to put, Junior Angelau in there to take snaps to centers to be a backup for Jake Majors, just in case something happened to Jake Majors. When you're talking about a guy that's a guard, I don't think you can look at the size of these individuals and say, okay, they're going to specifically play this position at the University of Texas. I don't think you can say that, okay, you have a 6'5" or a 6 foot, 5.5, 320-pound guy in Malik Bogbo and say he's definitively going to play offensive tackle at the University of Texas, because all they want is big humans on the field at the same time with a push. So when you're looking at the size of these guys versus what we've recruited previously, they're bigger than the guys we currently have on campus as true freshmen. Like, there's no size to be earned from them. Now, do they need to get into probably a good conditioning program, a college weight program? Probably see a dietitian to like in like Cam Williams' place where he's at 360 pounds. Probably needs to drop down to probably 340, 345, 350 pounds with good weight. Does that make sense? But they want big humans on the field. So to me, you find the best offensive linemen, the best guys that are going to play on Saturdays, and you put their ass on the field. I don't care if it's a 6'6" center or a 6'3.5", a 6'3" offensive tackle in Devin Campbell who can scoot like no other.
Yeah, and Texas Salt Slam, I appreciate your opinion. Wrong, Jeremy, about Williams. He will be a tackle as well. Most analysts agree that he has one of the highest upsides as a tackle. What I did, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I did was go back and look at Kyle Flood's offensive lines at Alabama. Those big dudes line up at guard. Again, Deontay Brown, Evan Neal was the guy that started out at guard and ended up at tackle, but he had to cut weight. So analysts could say something, and I may be wrong. But in my mind, going back and look at Kyle Flood's offenses over the last couple of years and where he had the bigger guys at, he had them playing guard. So yeah, he could play the position. It's going to be up to them and up to him to see where he fits. But in my mind, here.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead.
Finish.
No,
finish. Okay. Glenn Keller, sure, Clint, you can have position versatility, but you ideally want guys to stay at a specific position and be the best at that one position. Absolutely. I'm not saying that you're going to rotate these guys out. What I'm saying, it doesn't matter size to Kyle Flood based on height and weight. What he's going to do is he's going to put the best guys on the field. He's going to keep them at those positions. Absolutely 100%. It's not like, okay, this guy's going to play guard this week, and then 2 weeks from now, he's going to play tackle. But position versatility is important as an offensive lineman. That's why you'll see them cross-train at tackle, guard, center, so that if you've got a tackle that goes down, I can push my guard. If I think I have a better guard, second string guard, I can push that second string guard, and then push that guard that I think is probably the best tackle on, the second best tackle, right tackle. I can push them out to tackle. What I'm saying is, I don't think you can so much look at the height and weight of these guys and say definitively they're going to play offensive tackle or offensive guard. He's going to put the best guys up. You're bringing up Evan Neal that started off at guard and then eventually moved himself out to tackle. I think you see Kyle Flood doing that. You may see Devin Campbell for the first year, because I think that's where he's going to probably be projected to start. If somebody starts, it's going to be Devin Campbell, and it's going to be at that guard position this year. And then over the next couple of years, he's going to obviously, cross-train at tackle. And if Kyle Flood gets another guard in a recruiting class that he thinks that he can push to guard, or somebody else develops and he can push Devin Campbell out to right tackle, because I just don't see him being a left tackle, right tackle, then that's where he's going to push him to. I think position versatility is definitely huge at the offensive line, but at the same time, putting the best five guys out there and letting them play and develop into who they are, I think is the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I didn't realize Tyler Johnson was off the team, but yeah, we're all arguing about the same thing.
Yeah,
we all want the best five. Yeah, we all want the best five guys on the field, 100%. Regardless of position. We want them to separate themselves, but you also like to have that position versatility, where we're arguing if they're better at guard or better at tackle. Have that position versatility so that next five or next two or three, if you brought them in, the offensive line wouldn't suffer, right? You want to keep that train rolling, and continuity is important. You're absolutely right. Like, moving people position is absolutely what you don't want to do. You want those first five to be in their spots, communicating with each other across the line, and then go with them. But again, position versatility is not a bad thing if you just slide one guy in and move one guy out, and the offensive line doesn't lose a beat, right? Because 6 is just as good as 5, and 7 is just almost as good as 6. That's exactly what you want.
They say they got what if they want 17 scholarship offensive linemen at any given point, doesn't matter based on year. 17 offensive linemen, man, because that's you're talking about competition 1. 2, I think they want to be able to field a first and a second without having to take someone from the first and put them back in the second, and so on and so forth. So you can build that camaraderie with that team that you're currently playing with.
Yeah,
I get that. I'm just go ahead.
No, yeah, because he's pretty much talking to me. I think don't know. Again, I've watched Cam Williams dunk a basketball. I'm not arguing with you about his athleticism at all. Like, I've watched him play DeSoto twice last year. That's my alma mater at Duncanville. Like, I respect that. But he's a mauler. Like, he doesn't have to – like, playing tackle against him, like you said, you're going to have to run around him because you got 360 pounds to contend with. And I understand his athletic ability. I've seen the tape of him dunking a basketball. I'm not saying he's – in my mind, if Jeremy Lockerbie starts Cam Williams somewhere, it's probably going to be at guard. But I'm not saying that you can't play tackle. I'm not saying they won't play him at tackle. But I'm just saying where I feel he will probably start his career is at guard.
Somebody was talking about Kelvin Banks a while ago, dropping in the rankings. I got to trust what Kyle Flood sees. You know what I'm saying? Look, he finished it. I think Composite 247 had him as a 5-star at number 32. Means he's the 32nd best player in the country. The third best offensive tackle to come out, I think, is where they had him at. I think Josh Connerly and there was one other, the guy that went to Rice, I think that went to North Carolina, right? I think that was 1 and 2. And then behind him was Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks held that position down. Obviously, you go to these all-star games. They're looking at the stuff. You're going against, 5-star talent. You're going to get beat. But, hey, to have the third best offensive tackle in the country on your football team, the 32nd best player in the country, as a 5-star, composite 5-star by 247, I definitely not going to complain about a rankings drop. And Kyle Flood obviously loves Kelvin Banks because they stayed on him all the way from the time that he wasn't committed to Oregon to the time that he was at Oregon, and they kept the conversations going. So they see something in Kelvin Banks. I see something in Kelvin Banks, and that's a true left tackle with development.
Herbie, you want to plug real quick our podcast and our social media real quick, and we'll jump back on the questions?
There's 80 people in here. I think we got it to 94 tonight, man. That's a good night for first night back. Please hit that like button. We definitely appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel and you're new to our channel, thank you for joining us, man. This is what we do. We're going to sit here and talk ball. We love the comments, man. We love the going back and forth. Everybody's got an opinion, but at the end of the day, everybody on here that's Texas Longhorn fans want Texas, the football team, to win, bottom line. They want the best 11 to play both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And semantics kind of comes into it. Where these guys play at, I don't really give a shit if they're a guard or if they're tackle, man. Put the best 11 players on the field, and let's get that defensive line hell from the offensive line position. You can find us on Facebook at Texas Football Talk, on Instagram at Texas Football Talk, and on Twitter at TX Football Talk. You can find us on our Texas Football Talk podcast. We're going to start doing some football, Texas Longhorn football related content on there as well. We are represented by DraftKings. If you go in there, you can put, if you go into DraftKings, you're part of DraftKings, you go in there, put promo code TPPN. There's a special in there as well. But you can find us on Spotify, Apple, and Stitcher. All right, let's get back to the show. All right. What we got?
All right, so what we haven't talked about is positions of need.
Okay. What we got?
Okay, so Steve Sarkisian yesterday said positions of need he sees going forward and spots to fill are wide receiver, linebacker, and safety. And so we got a question today about Chevin Banks, the Ohio State cornerback. Can he play safety? He recently went in the transfer portal, a teammate of Ryan Watts. So that's a name to look at or look upon. Maybe he will give the 40 acres and the Longhorns a chance. But I really want to go back to linebacker, right? So similar like I talked about with offensive line, I'm going to go back to linebacker. And I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to ask you who amongst this group should start. Of course, DeMarvin Overshown is coming back. I think he's solid, right? He's going to start again. But other than that, you got Devin Richardson, Obi Agofu, Jalen Ford, Prince Dorba, DJ Harris, Maurice Blackwell.
And Clint can't figure. Okay, there it is. Clint can figure out how to get that off there, so I can put comments back up there. All right, a little rusty here.
So again, who out of that group do you believe has earned a starting position besides DeMarvin Overshown? Is it Jalen
linebacker?
Ford? Yeah, linebacker.
If I was to go off a season right now, if I was to say, okay, obviously you've seen Luke Brockmeyer out there, and then you've seen Jalen Ford for the most part, right? If I was to say, okay, a guy going into the spring right now that probably should be playing alongside DeMarvin Overshown, it's going to be Jalen Ford for me. Bottom line, the guy can move from sideline to sideline. Do I think he over-anticipated at some points last year? Absolutely. Do I think the speed of the game caught up with him at certain points? But you've seen flashes from him that you didn't see from Luke Brockmeyer. Do I think he can cover a lot more space than Luke Brockmeyer? Absolutely. So if I'm going to start someone along at that linebacker position next to Marvin Overshown next year in spring ball, it's going to be Jalen Ford. Does that mean that Jalen Ford's going to start coming out of the fall? It just depends on what happens in the transfer portal. If I'm going after one guy in the transfer portal right now, it's going to be at the inside linebacker position. To me, if I rank them, I'm going to go inside linebacker, an experienced safety or cornerback that you think may be able to play safety or a nickel position, and then that third would be wide receiver. That would be the way that I would, if I could pluck somebody out of the transfer portal right now, inside linebacker is definitely the one I would go after.
And edge is almost worse. Jet Bush. And then you're talking about all the freshmen. You're talking about Derek Brown. You're talking about Justice Finkley. You're talking about Jamon Tapp. You're talking about Ethan Burke. Like we need edge rushers. And I think we have a couple in this class. But who's going to play linebacker? I even flirted with maybe Jordan Thomas with his athleticism, dropping back to linebacker. But it's 6'3", 240 that Horns 247 has, and then you go to the Texas Longhorns roster, and he's 273. So definitely not. Do you drop a safety down? Who in the safety core do you think you could drop down to linebacker? None of these guys. They're all undersized, right? Anthony Cook, Jarian Thompson, J.D. Coffey, Brian Allen Jr. It's just not there. Linebacker and edge need some more dudes. Again, I really appreciate guys like Justin Finkley and Derek Brown, but the freshmen, how much are they going to play? So,
because that's what I was looking at too. I was looking at Justice Finkley. To me, Justice Finkley, is 6'4", 6'2", 255 pounds. Do you put him at linebacker? I just don't think he's going to grow. Right now, he's going to grow. And eventually he's going to grow out of that linebacker position into probably, probably a strong side defensive end is what you really want Justice Finkley to play at the next level. Be strong side defensive end.
So Ochon Mathis, right? The kid out of TCU that entered the transfer portal. From what we understand, he's 95% Texas. He's still enrolled at TCU because he needs to complete his degree. But he seems to be a summertime enrollee to the University of Texas and probably going to be your answer at edge. But I need more depth than one guy. I mean, Ochon Mathis has great numbers at TCU, but I need more depth than one guy. If he goes out, Jacoby Jones went out last year, and he was our best edge rusher, and we had nothing left. Like I said, we were trying all sorts of things. I would love for Barron Sorrell to take that job, but I need more depth at edge, and I need more depth at linebacker. I feel like this defense is going to be dependent on that front seven. You got to get pressure because, again, a lot of our corners are just as young. We're talking about Keaton Crawford, Brian Watts, Jahdae Barron, Ishmael Ibrahim, Jameer Johnson, Jalen Gilbo, Terrence Brooks. Like, all these guys are underclassmen. You got Deshaun Jameson coming back, but that's about it. So we got to find some dudes real quick on this defensive side of football.
Yeah. Again, they knew exactly what they were missing this year. I think it's up. If you're, again, I don't think that we need to go out and just pick a guy to bring experience, to bring depth there. You know what I'm saying? I look at Gary Patterson and saying, hey, Gary Patterson, hey, guy, we have a problem at linebacker right now. if you were to pick a guy off the team that you think could be a linebacker for the University of Texas, who do you think he could be? You know what I'm saying? To me, that's where it starts at. Who do you think could be an edge rusher for us? Because he has the ability to be able to see these guys perform at that position before they've even played that position before. Brockermeyer, somebody brought up a good point. If the defensive ends, because it could have set of edge, do we think he would have done a lot better? Yeah, but I think you have to have, in today's football, where people are going to spread you the hell out, you have to have a sideline to sideline, be able to cover a tight end or cover somebody in space. And I just don't think that that Brockermeyer has that. I think you need a sideline to sideline linebacker, somebody who can move in space, but is not willing to is willing to move forward and make a tackle.
Keelan Robinson, linebacker.
Keelan Robinson, linebacker. I like it.
Right. No, I was on a space last night. I want to pop this gentleman's comment up. Like we said last night, Jeremy put weight on Brown. Yeah, I did mention this last night in space, Twitter space. He's one of those guys, 6'4", 210, coming out of Texarkana. He's a speed rusher. But I think if you put 15 pounds on him, he's that guy, 6'4", 225, who could play both outside linebacker and edge. But again, we're talking about a freshman. So, like I said, when we start the show, we're going to list names and we're going to say who has earned the right to be a day one starter in 2022, no questions asked. And there's not a whole lot of guys on this current roster. I think that's why Steve Sarkisian said we're gonna bring 33 in, 32 already here, and we're looking to, again, like last night I said on Spaces, if you're not a contributor, I kind of want to go Bo Davis, but I don't curse like that. But if you're not a contributor to this team, enter the transfer portal. Allow scholarships to become open so that we can get contributors into this organization into this 85 scholarships. We want contributors. If you're not contributing to the program, find your way in the transfer portal, go to an FCS team, and we're trying to revamp this roster deep as we can, and because we're going to be playing the likes of Alabama next year, and eventually we're going to join the SEC.
Yeah. All right. So I think there's a Spaces going on about 4 minutes ago, so we don't want to take up their time. I think there's some guys hosting the Spaces over there on Twitter. So we'll get off here pretty soon. This, by far, is the best comment outside of the Super Chats that we got. I vote for Roschon Johnson to move to linebacker next year. I do. You got a running back room that's stacked, right? Got a running back room that's stacked because I think Jaden Blue was a 5-star before he decided to sit out his senior year in high school. He's probably going to be the next Bijan Robinson there on the 40 acres. And you got a whole host of other guys in the running back room. Roschon Johnson, if the Johnson brothers listening tonight, hey, we need Roschon Johnson to decide he wants to play linebacker next year. I'm good with that, man, because that dude is one tough dude.
I'm gonna go real quick. Yeah, we've been getting these slider linebackers like we talked about. They, 6'3", 210. I totally agree with you, Texas Salt Slam. I want the guys to come in the program that are 6'2", 6'5", 225 to 235 pounds that can run. Yes, that is what I want. Do you find those guys very often? You do at Texas, you do at Alabama, you do at Georgia, or the states of Alabama, or they play for Alabama, they play for Georgia. They're in the state of Texas. Do we pick the right ones? That's to be seen.
Yeah. Glenn Keller said, just think politically, you have to keep him running back now and get him drafted. Absolutely. I agree with you, man. It's just one of those things that Roschon Johnson is tough, dude. He's the toughest dude on the football team. You know what I'm saying? So to watch Roschon Johnson run about at linebacker playing defense, that's something I would definitely love to see. But yeah, obviously he's running back, man. And he did a hell of a job when Bijan got injured last year, carrying that torch at running back. So, all
right, brother, it's been fun, man. I'm gonna hop into space and represent.
Yeah, you hop into space. You hop into space. More to continue on this. We still have a lot to cover. But hey, we appreciate you joining us tonight. We appreciate being back. Again, you can find us on Texas Football Talk, or Facebook at Texas Football Talk, on Instagram at Texas Football Talk, and on Twitter at TX Football Talk. As always, thank you for listening, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em.